is. So in order to bring the students also into conversation and engagement of what I'm going to say, I thought I should make some changes in my talk. That's what I have done. So I hope it would be good. Basically, my talk is divided into three parts. Okay, first part, because the theme that I'm going to speak on is professional ethics in academics. So I would begin with profession. What is this profession that we are talking about, and what constitutes this profession? And then I would also talk about ethics. Okay, so the first part of my talk would be devoting to what is a profession and how teaching is a different profession than other professions. So that would be the first part of my talk. And second part, I would be talking about what is ethics that we are talking about, right? Has it any relevance to academics at all, any profession at all, right? Is it that there is a separate kind of ethics for professions and separate kind of ethics for general public? Is it so? So I would be talking about such kind of things. And also I would be talking about three principal theories that we see in ethics. So that constitutes the second part of my talk. And in the third part, I would be talking about specifically like professional ethics in academics. Okay, so we all belong to academia. What kind of professional ethics is required on our part? What kind of accountability is required on our part? This is what I would be largely dealing with during the course of the discussion today. Let me begin with the first thing that I mentioned, profession. What is this profession? Have you ever tried to understand? See, for example, if you have noticed, obviously all of you would be watching cricket, and whenever we come across Australia or England, okay, cricketers of England, we say that they're very professional compared to many other cricket teams. A British or English cricket team seems to be more professional. So what does that mean when we say these are professionals? So this made me to think, okay, and have a look at when did this term profession came into existence and to which it referred to in the earlier times. So friends, interestingly, I found that in the earlier times, the term profession was used exclusively for only people who are serving the divine, which means divinity, okay? People who are into divine service or divinity, and people who are involved in law, people who are involved in medicine, and then military, okay? Only these categories of people were called, categories were called professions, okay? Remaining ones are not professions, or not included under the category of professions in the earlier times. Okay, so what is it? Even if we say that, yeah, only law, divinity, and then military constitute professions, then what is it that makes them different from other professions? That is an interesting question, important question that we have to raise, right? So, in fact, when we raise such kind of a question, what we get to know is something interesting. Okay. In order to, why is this, these are called professions? Because what is required by the people who are in these professions is to not to or prevent them from exploiting the other. Okay. So there is a categorization of professionalism which is attached to these occupations called divinity, law, medicine, and military, so that they would be prevented from exploiting the other, which means exploiting for instance, a client for a lawyer and a patient for a doctor, right? So that is what was intended when it was categorized as a profession. And it is not just that. So exploitation of the other. The second important point is presence of the integrity of reputation of the profession. Okay, so the profession itself has certain kind of reputation, and that reputation is to be inculcated and is to be followed by the professional with integrity. So this is the second aspect, which means the individual has his obligation to the client, the other human being, and the individual, the professional that we are referring to, has an obligation to the profession itself. And the third one is a code of conduct, which means the professional has an obligation to his own self. Okay, so professionalism is developed in such a way that the individual who is into that particular occupation would be understanding his obligation towards the other human beings, other beings, and also the profession, the occupation that we are referring to. For instance, if it is medicine, medicine as a profession, and lawyer, law profession, uh, and military similarly. And also he has obligations to his own self as a member of that profession. So these three dimensions were stressed specifically in order to call something to be a profession and a member to be a part of that profession. Okay, so once we say that he is a professional lawyer or professional doctor, you are expecting that he performs all these three obligations: obligation to the other individuals, obligation to the occupation itself, and obligation to his own self as a member of the community. So these are the important aspects. Now the question that comes, I have been using occupation along with profession. So the question that is to be addressed is, what is the difference between occupation and profession, right? Are they same? Are they different? If it is the same, then you don't have to use two words. Okay, which means both profession and occupation will have similar kind of referring points. No, that is not the case. These two are two different ones. Okay, for instance, we say, what is your occupation? And somebody can say, I am a tailor, or I am a cobbler, or I am a farmer. Okay, so anything of these sorts, which means you are occupied with a particular work or activity to earn your own livelihood. Okay, any activity that you perform to earn your livelihood can be understood to be an occupation. But profession, no, there are certain specific things that are attached to a profession. When you call, when do you call something as a profession? When it is an activity that requires, okay, profession as an activity, it requires training, qualification, knowledge, skills. Okay, unless these four are specified, you cannot call, or you do not call that particular activity to be a profession, even if it is providing you livelihood. Okay, so that is the most important thing that we have to know. And also, profession requires two things. One is the membership into a professional body. The other one is certification of the practice. Unless these two are there, one cannot be a professional. So basically, there is a difference between occupation and profession. And profession initially was only confined to certain kind of occupations, but later on it was extended to many other professions, many other occupations as well, which are now called professions. Okay, so having given this, granted this kind of an understanding, now let me also further explain what makes a profession different from occupation. There is a very fundamental, important aspect that makes a profession different from occupation. And what is this fundamental distinction? An occupation becomes a profession. Okay, any occupation can also become profession. An occupation becomes a profession when a group of individuals sharing the same occupation organize to work in a morally permissible way, or to work to support a moral ideal. Okay, so what is being stressed here? In order to be called something to be, some occupation to be a profession, what is the grounding that is required? The moral grounding is required. That's why I was referring to obligations, three obligations: obligation to the other individual, obligation to the profession itself, and obligation to oneself, right? So that is how these people from the same occupation have to organize themselves in a morally permissible way. They have to come together and decide that we would work together and work to serve the community or the people in a morally permissible way. It is not that any possible way, right? So that is the distinction. And also they keep a moral ideal and try to work to support that moral ideal. Only then it is called a profession. Okay, standards are set for the profession. Okay, standards set for the profession would be beyond. This is another important point to be called something to be a profession. The standards set for the profession would be beyond what law, what marketplace, and what ordinary morality and public opinion demand. Okay, in general, certain things that are demanded, okay, by the society and community, but not all of them become a part of the standards that are prescribed for professional morality. Okay, so what is required is it goes beyond them. It goes beyond the general morality. It goes beyond the marketplace or ordinary morality, and also sometimes it goes beyond what law allows. Okay, for example, law may say that you cannot kill anybody, but doctors under euthanasia and under specified circumstances are allowed to do that, right? So that is how the professional ethics always, okay, prescribe standards which go beyond law, beyond marketplace morality, beyond public morality. That is the important thing that we have to understand in order to get into the intricate meaning of what a profession is. And in this particular sense, we will have many obligations to many people. As a member of a profession, you will have obligations to your employer, you will have obligations to your clients or customers, for example, your own students. So basically you will have obligations to the known and the unknown as well. The people who are known to you, and you may also have obligations to people who are not known to you as well. So this distinction is a very important distinction, because we often understand that we have obligations to the known. So, for example, you understand clearly that you have obligations to your parents, and you will never deny it. But if I say you have obligations towards your teachers, and beyond that, if I say you have obligations towards your neighbors, and you have obligations towards people who are poor and who have no food, then do you think it is wrong? This is where you have to understand things in a clear way, that we have obligations as a members of profession, not just to the known people. Okay, general morality also, many times it tries to go take you beyond the known domain, but professional morality always demands that you have obligations towards unknown people as well. So jumping or moving from known to the unknown is a very important aspect that we have to remember, that profession demands. Okay, so I want you to make note of this particular point. And then the question is, yeah, we understood what is a profession, but what is, do you think that teaching is a profession? Yes, of course, teaching is a profession. Then what kind of profession is it? Is it similar to all other professions, or is it different from all other professions? Okay, that's a very important question that we have to raise. For instance, when you look at teaching, okay, how different it is from other professions. Yeah, how different it is from other professions. For example, in other professions, friends, since all of us are into the teaching profession, some of your students and some of us are teachers, so all of us in a broader sense, in the broader framework, within the paradigm of academics. So let me explain how different it is from other professions. In other professions, you need not become the thing that the person that you are dealing with. Okay, for instance, a doctor need not become a patient. Okay, an engineer need not become a machine or a building or whatever, right? But with regard to teaching, a teacher has to always become a student. And once you think that you stop being a student, you are dead as a teacher. Right? You're not going to grow anymore, and you become irrelevant to your profession and also to your own self. Okay, so one of the most important aspects that makes teaching profession different from other professions is you have to be constantly a student. If any of us have any problems with that, I'm harsh to say that once you stop being a student, then you cannot continue to be a teacher. You lost relevance to the discipline and to your profession as well. So we have to continuously continue to be a student and lifelong student. So that's what basically makes teaching profession different from other professions. And another important aspect that we have to look at when we talk about teaching, the teachers, there are perennial challenges that a teacher faces. Perennial challenges. Perennial means continuous challenges that a teacher has to face during the course of a long journey. One of the things is, one of the challenges is we have to deal with a wide range of students with wide or different and varied IQs and understanding. And still you have to reach out to them. Okay, sometimes in the classroom there could be 100 students or 50 students or 40 students. You are still expected to reach out to every student in the class. Okay, so is it not a challenge to the teacher? And it is also every student may demand different kind of methodologies of knowing and understanding. Okay, so which means the teacher's task in the teaching in the classroom is a really difficult challenge, right? And along with that, it is also that the teacher has to deal with various generations of students. Sometimes if a teacher has say 40 years of 30 years of service, the same teacher, she may teach the father and the son as well. Right? So that is how we have to deal with different generations of students, which is very difficult. It is a difficult task and a very difficult challenge for the teacher. So different understandings, different methodologies are required, and then different generations of students may be there in the classroom, and we would be dealing with. And also continuously, you take up any discipline, okay, especially in the recent past, because of starting with globalization onwards, the developments in every discipline are so quick that there is a continuous flow of information, as well as new additions to the knowledge, existing knowledge that have been coming up, and the teacher has to continuously acquaint himself with the latest developments that are happening in the discipline, which is another difficult task for the teacher. So it's not just dealing with the students and making them understand what he wants to convey. It is also that acquainting oneself with the existing knowledge and the developments in the knowledge, which puts the teacher at the center and makes his life very difficult, right? And it is not just that. Along with these, the system's requirements, there are certain requirements. You have to complete this syllabus within this time. You have to complete evaluation within this time. You have to do this, that. These are the demands that the system, as a college or a university, an institution demands. All these things make the teaching profession very different and difficult one than many other professions. Just I'll touch one more important point with regard to teaching profession and then move to the other aspect. That is the criterion of success. When it comes to any other profession, how do you look at the criterion of the success? For example, there is a surgeon. So how do you look at the success of the criterion of the success of the doctor or a surgeon? Okay, on the basis of his own performance, right? And similarly, a soldier on the basis of his own performance in the war or in a difficult situation that is provided. But look at this plight of the teacher. Okay, uh, it's like the success of the teacher is always measured not on the basis of the performance of the teacher, but it is measured, it is identified only always on the basis of the success of the students. Okay, so it's not your performance which finally will be evaluated to understand your success, but your student success would be taken as a criterion to assess your success. So is it not slightly misplaced, the criterion of the success? But actually, that's a proper way. That's how we understand the world to be, right? So success of a teacher is a very important thing, which is being measured on the basis of the success of the students, right? So that is how the responsibility that we have for the students is very important. As the teachers, as members of the profession, what is it that we deal with? What is it that we deal with as teachers? At least two things can come to my mind. One is we deal with the knowledge of that particular discipline which is to be given to the students, right? So we deal with the knowledge. So while dealing with the knowledge, we are supposed to analyze and simplify it and provide it to the students. And also, we ourselves should get acquainted with what is happening around us very quickly in the world. So we deal with knowledge, and we also deal with young minds. Okay, so what is it as teachers we deal with? We deal with knowledge, number one. Number two is the young minds. So once we understand that we are dealing with these two aspects, these are so important for the future of a nation, future of our own, forget about the nation. Okay, future of our own survival, no? As human beings, as a humanity, as a human race, if you're thinking about yourself, then what is required is your future, you looking at your own future. And how do you look at your own future? When you look at your own future, you have to think of providing the best kind of knowledge to your younger children, younger minds, and also nurturing your younger minds in the best possible way with the what is going on with regard to that particular discipline at that particular point of time. So this makes, once you realize that you are part of all these aspects and you are so important to be important aspect of this larger process of past, present, and future of whether you call it society or humanity or a nation or a globe. Teacher has a very crucial role to play in transmitting, all these points. So that is where the responsibility on the teacher, the gravity of the responsibility of the teacher has to be realized by all of us. And once we realize the gravity of the responsibility, obviously, I believe that intrinsically, once you realize the gravity of the responsibility that you have towards the future, future of the students, future of your own self as well, because you are also part of their future. So obviously your life is also determined by what you teach to the students, so once we understand that responsibility, then we understand that the kind of obligations that we have towards the society, towards the students, and towards our own selves as well. That's why in the beginning itself, while talking about professions, I was talking about professions, obligations of three kinds. One is obligation to other individual human beings, obligations to the profession, obligations to one's own self. So that is very deep when it comes to teaching profession. That's what I want to stress in this regard. Now, let me take you a little further and try to explain what is this ethics that we are talking about, because I spoke about professionalism, what is profession, and then I also tried to explain how different teaching is as a profession from other professions. Now, the other important aspect that we have to talk about is ethics. What is this ethics that we talk about? No, is it not some outdated kind of a concept that we keep on talking about, but we don't really care about in our lives? Is it so? Think about it. Okay, because ethics basically deals with what does it deal with? Ethics basically deals with human action. Okay, human action. We are all human beings, and as human beings, we cannot stop ourselves from acting. Action doesn't mean this movie action. Okay, I'm talking about we act in the world, we do things in the world. So that action I'm talking about. So we since we cannot stop ourselves from acting in the world, and acting in the sense of relating ourselves with the other. Okay, the other could be other human beings, other could be other non-human beings, the other could be the nature, okay, the material things that we have around us. So anything. Okay, so this human action basically tries to interact. Through human action, we human beings try to interact with the other. Okay, so how this interaction, which means human action, is to be understood, and what kind of interaction is appropriate, proper, and what kind of interaction is not proper, is the domain of ethics. Okay, so it basically ethics deals with norms and standards of what is right and what is wrong with regard to making judgments about human action. Okay, so what is it that we do in ethics? We try to understand or develop certain norms and standards of life, standards with reference to which we understand right and wrong of the human actions. Okay, and that is how we try to come to a conclusion with regard to good and bad of the human conduct. So what basically ethics tries to deal with is it's like a systematic account of our judgments about conduct, human conduct, viewed from the standpoint of right or wrong, good or bad. Okay, that's what basically ethics tries to deal with. So if this is the case, like for example, human action is the domain. Okay, human action is the domain, and once we say human action is the domain, all of us, whether you belong to one profession or the other, everybody is part of it, right? Because we constantly, from the morning onwards, after getting up from the bed, we keep on interacting with the people. So which means we keep on acting in the world, and that is how the domain of ethics is domain of human action. Okay, so if that is the case, what are the important components that we find with reference to human action? When we talk about human action, if we try to analyze human action, there are at least three things that we have to take into consideration. One is the agent, the individual who is acting, right? The agent, and then the action, whatever action that we perform, and then the consequences of the action. Okay, there would be outcome of the action. So when we talk about human action, at least three things will be available to us. One is agent, the other one is the action that is being performed, because it is his duty, not because the consequences would be good. Okay, so that is how deontology talks about, which stresses the importance of the action. The third theory is agent centric. Okay, whether the consequences are good or bad, irrespective of consequences, irrespective of action, okay, right and wrong are majorly rooted in the agent's intentions. Okay, whether I am intending to do good is very important than the action itself or the consequences. Okay, so this theory, which roots ethics or good and bad, right and wrong in the agent, is called virtue ethics. Okay, so these are the three theories that we have. I'll explain them further so that we can understand them in a better way. Let me stop presenting. I hope I'm visible, right? I try to stop the presentation. Is this okay? Am I
Yes,
visible?
sir. It's all right. Yeah, visible, sir.
It's back to the normal, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Say, I'll explain you the distinction between these three theories, friends, with a small story. Say, for example, um, some of us have gone to a picnic, right? And it's a dam or river site that we went to, and we saw a small boy shouting after being fell into the river. Okay, river was flowing swiftly, and the boy fell into the river, and he's shouting for help. He's asking for help, and obviously none of us have any dare to jump into the river and to save the boy. And in between, suddenly a, a man jumped into the river and saved the boy and brought the boy outside the river to the river bank, and all of us went there and looking at the boy. Okay, this is the incident that has happened. He fell into the river, and somebody, after he shouted for help and nobody was ready to help, and suddenly somebody jumped into the river and took him out of the river flow to the banks, and he is helping the boy to restore the boy to the normal senses. And now, when you look at the situation, you look at the consequences of the action. You don't bother about the individual. You don't bother about what has happened. Suddenly, when you look at the boy being saved, which is the consequence of the total action is saving the life of the kid. We all feel happy, right? Immediately we think that, Amma, this boy is saved. The life of a person is saved. So, on the basis of the consequences of saving the life of the kid, we feel we attribute goodness to the action. We attribute rightness to the action. Okay. So in between, this is what is consequentialism. In between, the mother of the child has come there, and she looked at the child, and she hugged the boy, and then uh, she appreciated the effort of the savior by saying that, "Oh, you saved our son." Okay, so which means the person who has saved the boy is the father of the boy. So once you understand that, then you think that, no, that's see, it's not so big deal. It's not that he saved a stranger. In fact, previously you might have thought that, oh, jumped into the river which is flowing swiftly and then saved an unknown person. So you give the consequences of the action, and then you appreciate it. Once you understand that it is his father, you think that it's his duty to do it. Okay, so it's not on the basis of the consequences. Okay, the gravity of the goodness seem to be reducing in our mind, and we would be thinking that, yeah, it's his duty to save his son, so he has done it. Okay, so that, to some extent, this is the deontology. You have done it for the sake of duty, for the sake of duty. So you have. Oh, I'm on mute all this time.
No, sir, you were audible.
Okay, right. So that is the second theory. Second theory says You have to perform your duty because it is your duty, not because of the consequences. You should never think about the consequences, but you have to perform your duty. And this is what is called deontology. Now, at the third level, the man said, okay, that is fine, but who has pushed me into the river? Okay, he looked at the people around him and was shouting, saying that who the hell has pushed me into the river? Now you understood that the person jumped into the river and saved the boy, but he doesn't have any intentions of jumping into the river, because after the boy fell into the river and shouting for help, nobody jumped really, because everybody looked at the swiftness of the river, flowing river, and nobody jumped. Okay, and suddenly he jumped because somebody has pushed him. Okay, so you understand that he doesn't have any intentions of really jumping and saving his own son. Now the kind of moral attribution becomes less here. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, at one level we give importance to consequences, and on the basis of the consequences we attribute goodness or badness. And at second level we attribute goodness or badness to the actions themselves. And at the third level we attribute goodness and badness to the intentions of the individual. So if the intentions are good, only then performance of the action and the consequences of the action will become good. If the intentions are bad, or if there are no intentions at all, then even if the action is performed, even if the consequences are good, you don't consider that to be good. So this theory, which says that intentions are important, the agent is important, the agent must have the intention of doing good things, that is how he should be a virtuous person, is what is called virtue ethics. So these are the three theoretical positions that we have in the philosophical discourse when we talk about ethics. These are the three major ethical theories that we discuss in ethics: consequentialism, deontology, and then virtue ethics. In fact, if you look at Bhagavad Gita, what is being stressed in Bhagavad Gita is deontology, where Lord Krishna tries to persuade Arjuna, saying that you have to perform war because it is your duty. So duty for duty's sake is what is stressed here. If you look at Aristotle, he talks about virtue. He says individual has to have good intentions. Only then an action would be good. And if you come to modern theories like J.S. Mill, etc., Bentham and J.S. Mill, they talk about utilitarianism, consequentialism. They say, no, it doesn't matter whether you have good intentions. If the consequences are bad, then the action itself is bad. The person is also bad. So that is how consequences are the ones that have to be taken into consideration while performing the action. Now, these are the three theoretical positions that we have. So if we have understood these three theoretical positions, now the question that we have to ask is this, that where do you place yourself as a teacher? Where do you, yeah, where do you place yourself as a teacher? Do you place yourself as a teacher in the consequentialism, where you only bother about the results, the teleology, or as a teacher, do you think that you should perform your duty without disregard to without bothering about the consequences and intentions? Some people say no, I go to, some people say I am only worried about my results, so I try to see to it that 100% all the students qualify in the examination and 100% result must be there. So whatever may be the means, okay, I should get the good results. The second one is, I don't care about the results. I will do my duty. When the bell rings, when the time comes, then I go to the class, I'll teach, and I'll perform my duty to my own satisfaction, and I come out. That's all. I don't care about the results, consequences. Okay, this is the second theory. As a teacher, the first one is no, I have good intentions. I will try to teach well. I teach the students well, and I'll make them understand, and it is my own performance which is more important to me as an individual rather than performing it as merely a duty. Okay, merely performing it as a duty is like just going there and trying to complete the syllabus and I have done my job. Here it is with the commitment as a virtuous person that is important here in the third category. So how are you, where are you placing yourself? Are you placing yourself as a consequent in the consequentialism or in deontology or in virtue ethics is very important to us. And that is where we have to ask this question of the success of the teacher that I was referring to. Okay. So what is the success of the teacher? Is it when his student performs well, which means the consequentialism? Okay. Or when the teacher performs his duty well in teaching without bothering about the result, okay, without any intentions and without bothering about the result. Okay, this is deontology, performing duty for duty's sake. Or when he or she excels himself. This is the important point that I'm talking to. Okay, virtue ethics, where you have to excel yourself. That is what is being stressed in virtue ethics. So where do you place yourself? Do you place yourself only in the consequences or the result of the student, or merely performing your duty without bothering about anything else, or you trying to excel yourself all the time? Okay, so this is what is very important to us to address. Okay, so as we look at the academics, now we talked about professionalism and then ethics, and then ethics and professionalism. Now we are talking about academics. Okay, professional ethics and academics that we said. So as a member of teaching, as a member of this higher education bodies, as a professional of higher education system, most of us, are endowed with two works, two jobs. One is teaching, which means knowledge dissemination, and the other one is research, knowledge generation. Okay, it is not that if you're doing knowledge dissemination, which means imparting knowledge to the students, that is sufficient. No, along with that, we are also supposed to, as a part of the professional community of teachers, we are also supposed to contribute to the existing knowledge through our research. So that is how knowledge dissemination and knowledge generation, both of them are very important to us. Some of us are capable of doing good research and bring out best results in the research. So we should contribute to the knowledge generation as well. That is how teaching and research, both of them become very important. It is not just for the teachers that I'm talking about. See, these two would become very important to the students as well, because I understand that we have a good number of students here who have joined us. And even for the students, it is not just an acquisition of the knowledge. You, as startup groups and many other things have come up these days for the incubation centers, knowledge incubation centers, and many such kind of mechanisms have come up in the recent past, which encourage the young minds to contribute to the existing knowledge and enhance the existing knowledge through their research. So both for the teachers and students, it is very important that they should participate in the knowledge generation as well. It is not that only the teachers are capable of producing knowledge. In fact, students may be able to, because their minds are fresh and they can see a wider range than the teachers sometimes. So that is how the knowledge generation aspect is also very important. Now the point is, how do we look at this professional ethics and general ethics? Okay, and for example, if there is a conflict between general ethics and professional ethics, okay, for example, we all say that you should never lie. Okay, you should not tell lies. Okay, this is the general ethics. And in profession, when you're a part of the profession, Some of the professions, it may be required that you have to lie. So how do you manage that? No, when there is a conflict between professional ethics and general ethics. So how do we look at this conflict between these two? Because we understand that general ethics is a broader domain and wider domain as well, and professional ethics is a specific one. Okay, and professional ethics is obviously, professional ethics is not beyond the general ethics but within the general ethics, right? So that is how professional ethics has to be in consonance with general ethics. But sometimes professional ethics demands higher levels of integrity and accountability. Okay, because as a member of that profession, you are dealing with specific work and a focused group of people, and sometimes their lives would be involved in your actions. Okay, your actions may affect their lives. For example, an IAS officer taking a decision may impact the lives of thousands of people or lakhs of people. So that is how they have to understand the gravity of the situation. And as a teacher, if you are not updating your knowledge and if you are not teaching properly in the classroom, then you are spoiling the generations of students. You are not giving sufficient knowledge to the generations of students, and that is how the future generations may not work well. So that is how we have more focused responsibility. We have more focused responsibility, and if there is a conflict between professional ethics and general ethics, then it is obviously the professional ethics that prevails over general ethics. Okay, but there is a caution as per the rules and regulations and demands of that profession. That is how we have to understand. We have to analyze the conflict between these two. So if there is a general ethical system, and if as a teacher your action at that particular point of time is in conflict with the general ethics, then your professional ethics has to prevail, not the general ethics, because you are specifically dealing with a particular group of people whom lives of whom are in your hands in that particular situation. So that is very important. So whenever there is a conflict between professional ethics and general ethics, it is the professional ethics which remains. And that's where, when it comes to teaching ethics, performance of one's duties is very important. And we all know that. It is not that we don't know. Performance of the duties as a student, as a teacher, is very important. For instance, as when it comes to teaching, obviously the classwork, evaluation, and extension activities, all of them are very important, that we are supposed to perform. Okay, and it is not just performance of one's duties, but performance of one's duties ethically is important. Okay, I'm just adding ethics to that statement. It is not that you perform your duty merely as a duty, but you have to perform your duty ethically. Okay, for instance, you have classwork. Okay, so you say that, yeah, I go to the class, I complete my syllabus, that's over. But as an ethical, no, performing the action, teaching ethically means being on time, and no, not being corrupt in evaluation, and supporting the students. It's not, corruption doesn't mean only taking money. Okay, so what is important is, if you're not able to give the knowledge that you are supposed to give to the students, but by not updating your knowledge, that is also a form of corruption. So corruption has different meanings in different contexts. Okay, for example, if you take it into the government office section, then their corruption may be taking money or taking bribes. But here, when it comes to teaching profession, corruption has varied kinds of definitions, so which are to be understood. That is how, if you are not updating your knowledge, that is also a form of corruption. So we are all supposed to, as teachers, give the best knowledge and the contemporary knowledge to our students. That's one important thing that we have to remember. And the other important point that I believe, with regard to this immoral, is a teacher not working for self-improvement. As teachers, sometimes we think that, yeah, with some of our colleagues in the university, they think that once they get the job, research is gone. Okay, PhD is the last research that they have done, and after that they don't do any research at all, which means they don't make any new contributions to the field of knowledge, and they don't explore into what is happening around us. Okay, so it's like they don't want to improve further at all. So, one of the important characteristics that is required to be a member of this profession called teaching is constant self improvement. We have to improve ourselves, because by improving ourselves, we are also contributing to the future of the next generations, and that is how we are contributing to our own future as well, along with the future of the nations and humanity. So people may think that, yeah, I don't feel like reading, I don't want to update, but by that it doesn't mean that world is going to end. But no, since you are in teaching profession, since you are dealing with the generations of students, since you are dealing with your own future and our own future and everybody's future, we have this obligation for self improvement. So it is an implied, no, innate and implied aspect of teaching profession, that we have to work for self improvement constantly. Okay, and now coming to the research, no, that is with regard to the teaching, ethics of the profession of teaching. Now coming to ethics, we are all, as I said already, we have two jobs. One is dissemination and creation. I spoke about the dissemination. Now coming to creation of the knowledge as researchers, we are all contributors to the knowledge. And while contributing to the knowledge, unfortunately, friends, even the students must know this. No, unfortunately, friends, these days we see a huge upsurge in the articles and research articles that are being published, on various journals and various research platforms, online platforms, etc. And this upsurge made some people to look at the kind of quality of the work that is coming up, and it is found that there is no originality, there is no innovativeness, there is no contribution, new contribution to the existing knowledge that is happening. Which means, if you publish an article without making any new point, new perspective, new direction, then you're merely repeating what has already stated, and that is how you're not contributing to the knowledge, and that is how it's not ethical on our part to contribute to such kind of nonsense development. Okay, so that is how we have come across predatory journals or journals which publish your work without reviewing and by taking money from you. So friends, this is my sincere request to the colleagues and also to the future generation students that we have. Never publish your work in such kind of nonsense journals, okay, predatory journals, because tomorrow, after publishing there, tomorrow you will not be, number one, you will not be able to show it to the world saying that I have published, because those journals will be blacklisted. And number two, your own work has already gone. You have published it and you cannot publish it elsewhere. Okay, so you will have double deprivation, and you have also lost money. So you will have double deprivation. So please don't get into these predatory journals and publish them. And also never resort to plagiarism. Okay, plagiarism is stealing somebody else's property, somebody else's work. See, we call it theft, right? If you steal my laptop or something, we call it theft. Similarly, you steal my ideas and I have published an article, you publish it on your own name, removing my name, or take out some portions of my work and publish it without acknowledging me. So it's like stealing my ideas, which is called plagiarism, which has become a big problem for research ethics in the contemporary world. Please never resort to such kind of things. In fact, the traditional Indian ethics talks about 5 important principles: ahimsa, satyam, asteyam, aparigraha, and brahmacharya. Forget about brahmacharya. First three stress completely the importance of honesty and integrity to oneself. Okay, ahimsa is not stealing. No, you see, by stealing also you resort to kind of ahimsa, violence, and satyam. Okay, you be truthful to your own work. Okay, and be truthful to others' work as well. Asteya is stay away from others' property, and aparigraha never take away anybody else property. Okay, and be detached to your own property as well. So this is what we find in Indian classical Indian ethics. These five principles are very important for us all the time. And with regard to this academic integrity, friends, I'll just take 2 more minutes and stop. With regard to academic integrity, there is a new guidelines that have come in 2018 by Government of India and UGC as well, in the name of academic integrity and prevention of plagiarism. Okay, which talks about academic integrity as the intellectual honesty in proposing, performing, and reporting any activity which leads to the creation of intellectual property. So, by doing research, what we are trying to do is we are contributing to the intellectual property, and this intellectual property has to be contributed or has to be created with intellectual integrity and honesty, and not by stealing others' ideas. So that's what is being stressed in this 2018 guidelines that Government of India has provided us. It also tries to define plagiarism as the practice of taking someone else's work or idea and passing them as one's own. Okay, you pick up somebody else's idea and pass it as your own, which is wrong. So please be careful about these two aspects. And lastly, coming to the last point, like I have an interesting aspect that I thought I should mention to you. As teachers, how do you consider teaching when you come out of the class? And this is a question to the students as well. Okay, how do you look at teaching? Because some people say that teaching is a mere repetition. Repetition in the sense that same syllabus is being taught every year, and same textbooks would be there, and same teacher would come there. So they say the teacher has been repeating the same text, same lessons for say 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, sometimes 20 years, without change of the syllabus or with minor changes in the syllabus. So some people argue saying that teaching is an imitation or repetition. Okay, only thing is you are repeating yourself or imitating your own self. Is it true? Do you consider teaching to be such kind of boring thing that you would be repeating every day, like brushing your teeth or taking bath? Or how do you look at your teaching? This is a very important question to all teachers. Okay, how do you look at your own teaching? Or sometimes some people say that there is another model that comes up. The model says teaching is like a stage performance. You go to the stage and perform well, okay, and then come out. So obviously, in the first instance, you are repeating. Are you repeating? I personally consider that it's never repetition. Okay, so because the person who has taught last year and the one that is teaching now would always be different, and my way of teaching methodology and my way of presenting the content, everything would obviously change. So that is how it cannot be considered to be an imitation or repetition according to me. Similarly, is it a stage performance kind of one? No, even that is not the case, because in the stage performances model, it is already scripted. Every word that you speak is scripted. Okay, and then you give a performance. So I don't consider teaching to be a kind of or similar to that of stage performance. Even if that is the case, what is it? What is teaching? How do you look at your own teaching? Now, this is a very important question that each one of us have to pose it to ourselves, friends, like how do you look at your own teaching? I basically consider that it is non-imitative, non-repetitive, spontaneous phenomena of self as his own self or her own self. Okay, because I consider this to be spontaneous because, see, for instance, I have vocabulary. I know that I'm going to speak in English now. I know that I'm going to speak about this particular theme now, but the next word that comes out of my mouth is not known to me. It comes spontaneously. It spontaneously builds meaning. So when I'm speaking here or when I'm speaking in the classroom as well, it is a spontaneous activity of looking at. Unfortunately, we are not in the physical space. That's how we are not able to see each other. But otherwise, in the classroom, physical classroom, looking at the eyes of the students and looking at your own assessment of their understanding, you obviously switch from one tone to the other and try to respond to the other, respond to your student. So it is a spontaneous performance. It's a complete spontaneous performance as a teacher. And that is how, whenever you complete your class and come out, you would always think, no, at least I would always think whether I have done it well. Did I do well? Did I do well? Right? This is the question that always troubles us. And it is not just did I do well, it is also that did I do better than my previous class? Okay, so that is where I would stop, friends. As teachers, we are supposed to be continuously striving to excel ourselves. And it is, if you posit like Sarvepal Radhakrishnan as an ideal person and try to become one with him, yeah, if you posit Sarvepal Radhakrishnan as the ideal person, ideal teacher, and try to become like him, it is not possible. Okay, because you don't know what are the steps that you have to take. But if you understand that whatever I am today, okay, if I have clear understanding of that, then assessment of my own performance today and thinking that I should be one step ahead of my own self, which is today, is very important. So one step ahead of ourselves is what is the rule for us, which would what should be the principle for us, which would help us to go further as teachers, as students as well. As I said, as teachers, we are bound to be students, lifelong students. And only way of improving, only way of being ethical is by striving continuously for self-improvement. So I would stop it here. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity that is given to me by the organizers, the principal, vice principal, and head of the department, and friends Sajana and Nizamuddin for this kind invitation. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you so much, sir.
yeah,
Let us
just one
see
more.
whether someone is having. Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
just
Yeah.
one note that I forgot to mention here, friends. There is an interesting shloka that I had come across. I thought I should mention this here. It says, "Amantram aksharam nasti, nasti molam anoshadham, ayogya purusho nasti, yojikas tatra durlabha," which says, there is no alphabet which is not a mantra. Okay. Similarly, there is no root. No root is the tree root. Okay. There is no root which doesn't have medicinal quality, and there is no individual human being who is useless. Okay. But what is required is identifying the root to be useful for this root to be useful as medicine for this disease, and understanding this particular alphabet to be useful as this mantra, and understanding this person to be useful for this work. Who is capable of doing that? That is very important. Such kind of persons are very rare and important. And one of the important, no, basically, the teachers are supposed to play that role in identifying the worth of the student and also to which he is interested, and encouraging them and promoting them. Okay, so identification of the alphabet as mantra, identification of the root as medicine, identification of a student as so and so with his or her capabilities is very important, and the teacher plays a very key role in this regard. And that is how the responsibility that we teachers have towards our younger generations and students is enormous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Participants, if anyone is having any questions or queries, you may please ask to sir directly now.
Good evening, sir. I'm Kantimati from Chennai. It was very interesting listening to your talk, and very much needed, because at this time when professional ethics are becoming a bit diluted, I think you have really spelled out what is expected from a teacher in the society by the students, and as a role model for so many uh, in and around us. I have no question as such, but then I just wanted to appreciate the way you presented your points. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. No, my intention is only to make us understand. No, see, as teachers, uh, after over a period of teaching, completing over a period of service, we feel that we become monotonous beings, and we forget what is actually expected from us, and that is how these faculty development programs and orientation programs and refresher courses are very much required. Some people consider them to be waste of money, but I consider them to be very valuable, because I know how much I have learned by attending these refresher courses and orientation programs. So each one of us, we have to understand the opportunities that are provided to us. There are plenty of opportunities for our self-improvement. Are we making use of them in the way that we are supposed to make use of? Is a very important question. So we don't pose such question, but we straight away tend to blame the system, saying that system is this way, system is that way, right?
Yes,
That's what
completely
is.
agree. I completely agree with you, sir.
Yeah, because I'm saying this because my friends, like many people argue. I'm a philosophy teacher and student, and many people argue saying that philosophy is not useful at all. Philosophy has no future at all, and philosophy will not be useful at all, right? And my own colleagues in the department also would say that don't join philosophy because you don't have opportunities. But I always tell them that you have plenty of opportunities, but you be eligible for those opportunities anywhere. No, you think engineer will get a job easily? No, he has to become eligible for the job. Only then he would get a job. Similarly, even for philosophy, there are plenty of opportunities, and what is required is you have to become eligible for that, right?
Definitely, sir.
This is for the students, especially for the students, those who have joined us today. See, never complain saying that I didn't get the job. Okay, try to become eligible for the job. There are plenty of opportunities. Only thing is, you have to improve yourself and make yourself eligible for the opportunity that is waiting for you. There are many wonderful scholarships, fellowships at the international arena, at the national arena as well, which are waiting for us. And unfortunately, which are taken away by some incompetent people as well. You become eligible and then prove yourself, right? I
Yes,
have.
sir. So I just want to ask you one more thing. There are a lot of you were talking about the predatory journals. So right now, in fact, every journal has been cloned, and there is a kind of a predatory journal operating, and there are a lot of agents operating to get articles published in these journals. So why, of course, professional ethics says we shouldn't be doing it, but then there is always a temptation among the scholars to get an easy publication. How to curb this?
No, we are in the times of fast food, right? So we want everything to happen quickly, Amma. So how is it possible to see if you want to give birth, there should be 9 months time. Similarly, if you want to publish a work, you have to spend sufficient time on the article, and then write your own perspective and develop it. This process itself takes at least 6 to 9 months, and then the evaluator, when you submit it for publication, it has to be reviewed, and the review also takes time. But now we want publication within a month, within a week, sometimes within a day, right? This is what prompts
And it
us to
happens. And
take
it
the
happens
shortcuts.
instantly.
Yeah, it is happening. It is happening because there is a demand from the side of the people. No, I'm saying both of them are at fault. But what I suggest, what I tell my colleagues is this: friends, you may publish in a predatory journal overnight, but then tomorrow your own students will come to you as research scholars, etc. Can you tell them not to publish in predatory journal? If you tell them, then they will bring your article and show it to you. Where will you keep your face? You have to hide your face in front of your own students. You would be in such a pathetic situation. Do you want to put yourself in such kind of a situation? Do you think that tomorrow the society, the knowledge society community, academic community will respect you for any of your publications? No. Number one, you're double loser, in the sense that you lost your money and you lost your intellect, whatever brain that you have, and finally you cannot even climb. So you are deprived 3 times because of this particular act, right? So I would strongly suggest that please don't go for them, and you try to publish in a standard journal. They may reject you, but every standard journal, when they reject or when they send it back for improvement, they give their comments. They tell you how to improve the article and then send it back to you. And my articles are rejected. Every article gets rejected. That's fine. I work on it, improve it, and then publish it. It is not that overnight I want a publication. It is not possible, right? So that's where we have to be very careful. We have responsibility towards our own selves. That's why I was saying there are 3 kinds of responsibility that profession demands from the individual, a member of the profession. One is responsibility to the other fellow beings who are in your own profession, and you have responsibility towards the profession. Third one is very important: responsibility towards your own self, because it is your future as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for patiently answering my queries.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
I have provided the links to my websites, so whoever is interested in my work can click on them and see them.
So I think we shall move on. Thank you, sir, for you just wonderfully connected professionalism, ethics, and professionalism in academics for all of us. I'm sure your words of wisdom have enlightened all of us who have assembled here. I extend my profuse gratitude to you on behalf of everyone gathered. Before moving on to the vote of thanks, there is an announcement for the information of all the participants. Feedback link has been posted in the comment box. All are requested to submit it without fail. Certificates will be issued within 2 days. Now I invite the convener of this event, Ms. Sajana Shamsuddin, to propose vote of thanks. It was her wholehearted efforts which bore fruit in the form of this webinar. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nizam. Honorable Chairman Shri Simit PR, Principal Dr. Manoj George, Resource Person Dr. Balaganapati Devarakonda, Vice Principal Dr. C. Sheila, Head of the Department Dr. Binimol Punus, faculty members, participants, and my dear students, a warm good evening to you all. I humbly present myself here to propose my sincere gratitude to all the people associated with the smooth content of this webinar. First and foremost, I take this opportunity to thank our chairman, Sri Srimit PR, for all his support in the conduct of this webinar. Thank you, sir. I also extend my sincere gratitude towards the managing committee for their support. Now, let me express our wholehearted gratitude towards our honorable principal for his guidance and support. Thank you, sir. Our dear Vice Principal, Dr. C. Sheila, has always been a true mentor. Thank you, dear Sheila Miss, for inspiring us. We are really grateful to our head of the department, Dr. Binimol Punus, who has always taken the pivotal role in guiding us as a team in all our endeavors. We thank you, madam, for all your efforts. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sajana.
Now, I would like to extend my wholehearted gratitude towards our invited speaker, Dr. Balaganapati Devarakonda, for accepting our invitation and being with us today. We thank you for enlightening us by sharing your vast array of knowledge acquired through years of hard work and experience. I, on behalf of the Department of Science and Humanities, Federal Institute of Science and Technology, express our profound gratefulness towards you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I take this opportunity to sincerely thank the technical support team for all the support provided throughout the conduct of the program. I sincerely thank all the faculty members, participants, and students who attended this two-day webinar. Finally, I thank the coordinators, Mr. Nisamuddin Akbar, Ms. Naisi Ignatius, Mr. Thomas Phillip, and every other who helped us organize this two-day webinar. I look forward to your cooperation in all our future endeavors. Once again, I, on behalf of the Department of Science and Humanities, Federal Institute of Science and Technology, would like to thank everyone profusely for making this webinar a big success. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I cordially extend our sincere gratitude for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
With that, we conclude the two-day national webinar organized by the Department of Science and Humanities, Federal Institute of Science and Technology. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you. Good night.